Hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome. Thank you for joining us in the Shining Icosahedron Great Order. I am the First Acolyte Fovorobos, and I am very excited of this interview. This is our very first intercontinental interview. Hello, welcome our guest. How are you?
Greetings and hello. I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's also my first video interview ever, so we're both in this together.
That's even more exciting now. Now, I don't want to mispronounce your name. Could you share that for us?
I am John from Legitamine Games. That's my game company, creator of the game Metanthropes.
Metanthropes. All right. I am very excited to talk about that. But first, I have a few questions about you. We were talking a little bit before we started, but they are saying that you have a great beard, and I agree, by the way.
Thank you.
So, our guest is from Greece, specifically from Athens, right?
Yes, indeed.
And you were born there or you currently live there?
No, I'm born and raised here in Athens.
All right. And besides your game company, do you have another like day job?
And for the last 3 years or so, no, I'm all in into this, into making this work.
Wow, that's
My
very
previous
cool.
job, I know, and also a bit scary, but yeah. um, my previous job was actually working at the board game cafe as a game master. I was the one who was explaining the rules of board games to customers.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Okay, so yeah, I think I have to jump into the next question right away. How is the game and in particular tabletop RPG games in Greece, like the scene?
Well, I have to say that honestly, I'm not extremely active in my local area and community, but I know there are communities here who are active on TTRPGs. I know there are many Dungeons and Dragons related communities. I know there is one called Esperos, who you go there and you play TTRPGs, an actual place and where you can
Okay.
meet people. I know that there are some LARP communities, especially in Thessalonica. There's a Vampire the Masquerade LARP community. But yeah, people become acquainted with TTRPGs at fantasy shops and board game shops who sell actually board games and TTRPG games and dice and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they form their own little groups and start playing on their own. At least that's my perception of it.
That's how you started playing?
Yes, indeed. Actually, funny story, I was introduced to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons many, many years ago, about 20 years or so, when I was a teenager still. And I played for a bit. And then I found out an introductory handbook for Vampire the Masquerade at the video game convention. So pure luck, pure chaos, chaotic. And yeah, I immediately fell in love with it. And being still a teenager with friends at my school, we went to the library deep into the shadows and played TTRPGs like the stereotypically geeks of that era.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. I think that's the story of a lot of game creators right now.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. And so you said you started with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and then you jumped to Vampire.
Yeah.
And after that, have you played any other game systems besides yours?
Yeah, of course. I played quite a few. I would say that there are only two that I have really, really delved deep into. That's Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 edition.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the games from the World of Darkness series, which is Vampire the Masquerade, Vampire Dark Ages, a little bit of Mage the Ascension, which is actually one of my inspirations for Metanthropes.
Ooh.
Werewolf and Werewolf the Apocalypse and Wraith the Oblivion. Um, and the third major influence for my game, which I have played quite a lot, are the Warhammer TTRPG series, both fantasy and the 40k universe, like Rogue Trader and some homebrew stuff that we tried and played. That was the first actual game that it was properly introduced to the D100 system, which greatly inspired me. Besides some one shots of Call of Cthulhu, and yeah, a lot of one shots to various other systems and games. And unfortunately, I have played a lot less than I have actually studied. I've read a lot of PDFs, but I have played only so like 10% of them or even less.
And when you have the chance to play or the time, do you usually play like in person there with friends or online?
Well, after the pandemic, I mainly almost exclusively play online now. Even with my friends, even now that we do have the opportunity to find each other like physically, and we still play online because we've discovered virtual tabletop platforms and various
Mm-hmm.
ways to actually make it not only work, but make it a very good replacement, if not, like an equalizer or sorts of how we used to play. Like we have taken some things like the being next to each other and we have replaced them with cool virtual tabletop effects and automations to systems and 3D dice and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I've played this past years like 2 or 3 sessions physically, and I also have played like dozens or more online sessions.
Right. And well, we actually have a few questions already. I am going to leave the first one for later when we jump into the specifics of your game, but the others, they are asking if you could tell us a little bit more about your job as a DM in a cafe.
Yeah. Well, it was uh, basically more board games than TTRPG games. Board
Okay.
games like Seven Wonders, Catan, all the from dice, fast-paced role games, fun games, party games, strategy, and whatever other categories. And people would choose one game that they would like to play, and you would go there and explain the rules of the game. It would, like, you don't have to know how to play Seven Wonders, for example. I would go there, and within only a few minutes, I would explain and show them how to play, answer all their questions, and be there for them to enjoy the game.
Right now I
It's a
understand.
nice way. It's a nice way to be introduced to really hard and difficult and complex board games extremely easy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Did you like made the simplified explanations yourself, or was something that was given to you?
Well, now we kind of, all the game masters there, we learn to create our own flow, as we
Yeah.
called it. It's like a process, like a river flow that you take them for what the game is, what's the goal, how to play. And we created our own way of describing them, the best possible way for them to understand what they have to do. But also it was back and forth, like you have to answer all the questions. I have to frequently stop and say, is it cool? Are you still digging this game? Maybe we want to play something easier. Oh, we cool. Okay, let's continue with the what do you do during your turn and stuff like that.
Okay. That's very interesting. Now I understand why you say that you've read the rules and how to play more than played.
Yeah, it continued with a lot of PDFs about TTRPGs. That's like one of my main hobbies now. Study TTRPG games and watch streams, stuff like that.
Reading systems.
Yeah.
Speaking about reading, they would like to know what's your favorite book of the Black Library? I guess this refers to the World of Darkness.
I think Black Library is Warhammer.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Well, we played a lot of homebrew back then, so especially for the 40K universe, we played a special homebrew session that was a series of sessions that was in the 30 actually K, not 40K, at the Horus Heresy, and we played those historical events for those universe, and yeah, it was pretty exciting because I was playing as a player back then. I wasn't the GM, and there was a lot of things I didn't know about that universe that I learned through playing. It was a great experience.
All right. Well, there you have it, guys. Um, um, yeah, I will skip that first question for a bit. So I guess I already have the answer, at least for board games. But when you are playing RPGs, are you usually the game master, the DM, GM, whatever, or are you usually a player?
The vast majority of my time has been GMing and creating my own worlds and my own games and my own systems. So yeah, I've started playing again more frequently now as a player online by being a playtester to other game designers and playtesting their games, and to new channels that I've met through Twitch and Twitter. But yeah, what I personally enjoy the most is GMing, and what I personally enjoy the most above everything else is GMing my own game as a narrator for Metanthropes.
That makes
that's why
sense.
that's why I do it all the time.
So, well, okay, well, no, let's jump into your game. I mean, we all want to know about that. So, first of all, they want to know why that name. So I guess it's
Hmm.
for one side why the name of your game company and why the name of the specific game we're talking about today.
Okay, both Legitamine and Metanthropes, right?
Yeah.
All right. Legitamine's like I wanted to, it was like a pun, like a joke, something like dopamine, endorphin, serotonin, those things that make your brain happy. But
Okay.
it's legit because legit is an old school gaming reference that's it's being like an original, authentic thing. So that's how legitimate games comes from. As for Metanthropes, Metanthropes, I know it's a interesting word for those that do not know it, but it originates from the Greek word metanthropos, which actually translates to beyond human.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the game is about what we call metahumans, closer than superheroes. I would prefer the term metahumans, or more preferably metanthropes. And yeah, that's the game. That's where the name comes from.
Okay. So what is Metanthropes? What's the idea of that game?
All right. Metanthropes is a tabletop role playing game about ordinary individuals gifted with extraordinary gifts finding their place in a multiverse of entwining timelines and mind bending dimensions.
Okay.
Metanthropes are beings of extraordinary and unlimited potential in a setting of endless possibilities. You can play at any era, any genre, and any setting, and explore what means to be someone who is partly human, anthrope, but also meta, which means has many, not actually only one, supernatural, metanatural, extraordinary gifts, such as all the superpowers actually you can imagine, going through wars, reading minds, teleporting, opening gates to other dimensions, and yeah, the list goes on and on and on.
All right. So I would have to start with why doing it like that. Why with those powers, meta abilities?
Yeah, when like 10 years ago, when I decided that I wanted to be a game designer professionally, one of the first ideas I ever had was I want to create a D100 system, like it is that this game had. It is a D100 system,
Mm-hmm.
and have 100 meta powers, like everything imaginable, everything anyone can imagine. I wanted this game to have, and if it's not included within the list of these 100 meta powers, I wanted them. I want those to have combos that combine different meta powers to create something new. For example, if you take thermal powers and hydrokinesis, which controls water, you can create ice. And this is like a simple example how you combine meta powers to create something more. And I wanted to create actually a game that I will personally never be bored playing. That will have so many possibilities when it comes to character development, but also to world building and creating your own setting. That will be truly a bottomless pit of ideas, if I can say that. So, yeah, with this game, you can play any imaginable character, have any type of gift, whether it would be for um, intrigue and diplomacy and in getting inside other people's minds and controlling them, their thoughts and emotions, or be an exploration by teleporting, opening gates, flying, traveling through dark matter or light or dark energy, stuff like that. but also to have a game where you can play at any setting and any era, can play this game based on mythology and be like gods among humans, or you can play at the modern era, which is I personally find very interesting. What would happen in our world if meta gifted, meta supernatural people rose? And you can also play at cyberpunk era, or the vast future where everybody is supernaturally gifted and a metanthrope. And of course, when you also have superpowers like time travel, you can mix it up all together and have go
That's
back and
true.
forth.
Whatever you want or everything at the same time. So,
Exactly.
just to be clear, the system you are using the 100 system.
Mhm.
All right, and
It's
you
based, yes, it's based on that, and I've created my own based on the simple principle of the D100 system, which works with percentages. You have like everything you have, all your stats are percentages, and when you roll your D100, you have to hit your percentage and lower.
okay.
That's the main philosophy. So if I have 35% power and I try to open a jump door, success is a 35 and lower, 34, 33. And the lower you go, the better. If it is a 36, for example, and above, it's a failure. So the best roll is the natural one. Natural one in this game is the best roll you can make. It's not Dungeons Dragons here. And the worst and the worst roll you can make, the critical failure, is 100. Catastrophic and botch things happen.
Okay, so this game is for all of my fellow bad luck players that always have the low rolls. It's designed for
Yes.
us, guys. Yay! Finally.
Yes, the lower you go, it's the best here. Yeah.
Yeah. So why like that?
As I said earlier, I was introduced to the 100 system in Warhammer. Like I deeply delve into it. I've also seen it in the Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu games.
Mhm.
And I found it much more interesting, understandable, and relatable. Like with other, like the what did the D20 system, you have basically to do a little bit more of math. I have to add this modifier, my also bonus +3 from there, +2 from there, stuff like that. And you have to hit a difficulty. Other systems, like the World of Darkness system, you have to amass many different dice to have like 5 successes or more, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
In this game, you have to simply, it's percentages. Everybody understands percentages. You don't have to know what a TTRPG is to know what a percentage is. So you have, if you have like 60%, it's better than having 30%, so on. So I like the premise better than any other system, and that's why I began building my own system as a D100 based system.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's focused more on the storytelling and the actual like adventures more than the mechanics and the numbers and all that like other games.
It's at its current phase, the phase of development. Yeah, the current phase of development is we called it open beta phase of development.
Okay.
It has been an active development for 4 years now, and we are at our open beta phase now. We're showing it to people, and we're playing with others and having like blind play testers and stuff like that. Although usually I am so far the only narrator who actually introduces the game, but hopefully that will change pretty soon. And yeah, I am focusing on creating a great system right now, and an easy to play system, and having it being easy to play with virtual tabletop platforms like Foundry, for example, Foundry Virtual Tabletop.
Mhm.
And as when it comes to storytelling and world building and stuff like that, although there is an overarching greater storyline and cosmology and mythos that I'm building, it is people can play it however they want. That's the truth of it. That's the truth of the matter. So if you want to play small part-time adventures where people are like solving crime in their neighborhood, you can do that, no problem. But if you want also to play like grand time traveling, dimension jumping adventures with extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional entities of omni-powered level of powers, you can do that as well. This system facilitates all kind of adventures.
All right.
That's a goal. That's a goal.
Very open. So you said that you started working on it 4 years ago. And I think I heard you said we. So could you tell us about the team?
Yeah, it's basically me. That's my flagship, my own everyday passion project and full-time project now. But also I'm blessed to have a lot of close friends and my brother and a group of devout play testers that we have been together from the beginning, and we always play our games together. It's actually my play group that I had before I began my game design adventure. And also with my brother, we are creating, he's focusing on the more technical aspect of this endeavor that I'm not extremely keen and I do not enjoy as much as game design.
Okay. And so you are in the beta testing part. By the way, you have a volunteer career on the chat. It's Vegan Resta says, sign me up for Metanthropes gameplay, please.
Excellent. Let me hit up with the link to the game. And I'm not actually checking the chat right now. I'm not very familiar with doing two things at the same time. So talking to you and checking the chat might be a bit difficult for me. So maybe I will check it later, the chat.
Of course.
But thank you everyone who is interested. I am fully open with, I will play with everyone who is interested. Simple as that.
If they want to do that, how can they reach out to you? You placed
Excellent.
the link, but I think it was blocked due to security. So could you send it here on Zoom?
Sure.
And then
I've checked it.
There you go. Our stream master will do it.
So it's right now it's three simple steps. First is to visit metanthropes.com and sign up there. You can sign up using your Twitter, your Facebook. I would prefer Discord. Discord is the best choice to sign up, or your email and stuff like that. And then only by signing up, you unlock a lot of content to the website. And the second step would be joining our Discord. We use Discord for voice and audio and video if you want to use your camera. So yeah, that's how we use video and audio. And the third step is we have our first demo this past month actually of Foundry VTT. We have been venturing between many different virtual tabletop platforms, and I have placed and tested many, and thankfully, right now we have found our new home, which is Foundry VTT, which I personally think is the best. Has all these amazing features. You can actually code anything you want and create any system you want, any homebrew idea you have. You can place it, and you have various effects. Actually, yeah, it's endless possibilities, and it matches the aesthetics of the game itself. But it required a lot of coding, and I don't know how to code. So that's why, thankfully, I have my brother on my team, and he's helping me to implement all the game system right there. But even right now, after 1 month of development, we have the majority of the system fully automations. Like, for example, when you roll the D100, it automatically calculates the distance between the roll you made and your percentage, and it automatically calculates the levels of success, what you can do with them, the rerolls, and all the details of the system that I haven't really talked about yet. And also visual effects, weather effects, dynamic lighting, fog of war, so many things. It's really amazing. Yeah. So these are the three steps. You join metanthropes.com, you join our Discord, and then you get a link to the Foundry VTT. No installation or signing up there required. You just click a link and you enter the room and start playing.
All right, that's amazing. So there you go. If you are interested, guys, after the interview, you can jump there. I know this is not like the question a creator wants to hear. I am aware, in being studio are always scared of this question, but when would you say you will have it done, or approximately when are you planning to like having the final launch?
Yeah, interesting question. One more thing about the previous question that I just I just realized. But once you enter the metanthropes.com, go to events. There's a category there, go to events and find an introductory session on the date of your preference and click going and book your seat. So that I close this little paragraph that I opened, this little, yeah. And about your question, when would we be done? The big question.
Yeah.
To me, it's a continual process of development that in a way will never have an expiration date, like a finish line. So yeah, really, I created a game that if I am to keep developing for 10 years and more people are joining it throughout all the phase of development, that's great for me. I don't really mind. I don't want to finish it and jump to another project. This is not actually my goal. As I said, I want to create something that I can invest fully, maybe, forever, who knows. But yeah, a more grounded answer to your question would be the beta phase of development will end once we have fully integrated the system to Foundry VTT.
Okay.
Once I have created all the supplements to the latest version of the game, like the combos, all the possessions, I have gone through, have play tested all the meta powers, because play testing 100 meta powers is quite a lot. Each meta power has 5 levels. So it's like 500 different unique things that you can do. For starters, it's like the basis of the game. And yeah, once all those have been thoroughly play tested, and I think it would be a nice time to create, to have a Kickstarter project and actually kickstart the game. And by then, I would say the beta version will be complete, and we will be what would be considered like the live version or the ongoing version. But then I have many supplements in mind, supplements that will take the game to next level, and like the epic level of Dungeons and Dragons, the equivalent of like omni-powered level of meta powers that you can influence entire planets or clusters of galaxies. You can mind control an entire planet, like stuff like that. And once I have like enough content, video content and stuff like that, so it'll be more accessible to people. And yeah, I think by then you can say, but as for when, I expect to have a Kickstarter within this year, hopefully. And so yeah, beta, I think is like we're gonna stay for 1 year tops to this to the beta still. But I want to be play tested by quite a lot of more people before I say the beta is complete, and even more because before I say now I wanted to create a printed version, like an actual hardcover book.
All right. Speaking of printing and all that, I saw on the Instagram where I contacted you that you have a lot of images of the like different meta skills and things like that. Did you create all those designs, or it's another team member?
These are my designs, these icons for the 100 meta powers. I've actually used some sites like the Noun project, which gives you access to a lot of icons, and then I edit them to create what I imagine. I do not consider them the final versions for each icon, but they are close enough. They have like their own identity, and they portray the language of the game, if I can say that. For example, like the color represents the energy type of each meta power has between material, psychic, cosmic, and elemental energy types, while the background image, it's the classification of meta power. For example, if you see a meta power that's within a shield, that's like the Aegis classification, which are all the defensive capabilities. And if you see the frame be like a human-shaped face, like the peripheral of a face, that's the manipulators, who are the meta powers such as like mind control and telepathy and stuff like that. So by seeing, and in the middle, there's always the icon of the actual meta power. So if you see something, for example, like a shield that is green and has the cross inside, you say, oh, that's an Aegis, green it's elemental, and the cross like healing. So I guess that's the meta power who does all the healing in this game. So yeah, that's how I created and why I'm using Instagram to show all these meta powers
All
and a brief
right.
description of what they do.
And before I have my next question. We have a quick question about the website that you shared. To select the time, they are asking in which time zone is it uh, assigned so they can make the exchanges.
Yeah, well, for introductory sessions, I have all the Fridays available for the months of April and May, and I have two different sessions within the same day for the two different major time zones between our two oceans that are for the distance between us. For example, every Friday I can say my own time, but you can figure I am GTM +3 or UTC -3, I guess it's my time zone. Not extremely familiar with your time zones like Pacific exactly, but I think we have like I am 7 or 8 hours ahead of you. Yeah, right now it's like 7:30, for example, and you must be like early in the morning or something.
11:30 in the morning.
Yeah, this is 7:30 in the afternoon. So yeah, if you are across the ocean, if you are like American, Canadian, Mexican, or Latin America in general, I have also one session that begins in late hours for me. But if you book your seat, I will stay up, drink a lot of tea, and be 100% full, energetic, and excited to play with you. Actually, the thought of playing and introducing Metanthropes will give me all the energy I need. So yeah, but if for some reason Friday is no good for you, or whatever of the hour doesn't work for you, send me a message, write a post. We will figure it out. Don't worry. It's like one of my major number one priorities to introduce new people to the game. So it will be to your convenience, not mine.
All right. Okay, perfect. That's very kind of you, especially considering that some of us or some of the beta testers will be in a very different time zone.
Yeah, I guess my country is not very helpful when it comes to time zones, not even to most Europeans. Like so, and I know that there are a lot of players around the world, and I want to reach to anyone interested. So I won't let space, and time be of any obstacle.
So speaking of other countries and time zones and all that, have you had a lot of testers from other countries or mainly Greece?
Of course, I started with my Greek real life friends as
Yeah.
my playtesters. I expanded to other Greek who are not considered like my close friends of mine as playtesters. And then this like past years after going open after going to beta version, this is when my actually playtesting version of the game actually began with everyone I can get my hands on. So far I had like a dozen, but I'm hoping for much more. It has actually been one of the struggles. You talked earlier about some struggles that you may
Yeah.
face in this journey. Finding other people and finding the right time and the right circumstances to play a session up to now has been kind of challenging, but thankfully I found some people through Twitter and Twitch. Shout out to boys from the Baltic Star, Technomaster Kyle, MS Arthidian, Kopos, and many others. I cannot say them all, but I'm hopefully beginning to expand now more than ever. And I hope to soon have a lot of play groups to choose between.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that you will get some from this interview and in the future when they see it on YouTube because we will put it
Amazing.
there.
That would be
So
amazing.
then I'm not sure if this question would apply, but I'm curious about the response that you've received so far. Like, if there are people not from Greece that have played or seen your stuff of the game, do they have a different reaction? Like, is there like something cultural about this that might change the reaction?
Well, at metanthropes.com, you can actually rate the sessions, and so far it has been only 10 stars. I don't know if this is a
Mm.
good indicator or not. Maybe people are being kind to me. But yeah, I've received a very amazingly positive feedback. when it comes to the system, the way you play it, my personalization skills, and the virtual tabletop platform that we use. And my worst critics are those who are closer to me. So like my closer group are the ones who like power game and power scale it and find the where it doesn't, the work 100% of we want the game. And also I am personally my own worst critic when it comes to
Yeah.
um, one of my other struggles that I faced is I was really used on game GMing and narrating on Greek. We, as a party, even before I decided that I wanted to be a professional game designer and narrator and GM, most of my roleplay was in English because that's why that's the way we liked it. Maybe we were inspired by movies and stuff like that we were seeing,
Yeah.
and most of our lines when we use voice acting and stuff were English based. But I like to make impressions and weird voices when I roleplay. But I wasn't used at all to describe the locations. Like once you enter a room, to their convenience and also mine, I will always explain the Greek. I would like, you see this and this and that. But
Yeah.
when it came to, even though I feel pretty comfortable with talking in English, when I came to describing with beautiful words and detail and stuff like that, and an area, ooh, that was extremely difficult for me. Extremely, it was quite a challenge, but I'm working on it. I'm reading books. I'm watching, as I said, like every day, almost many live streams from really big names like Roll20 and stuff like that, Mention 20 stuff like that, Critical Role, I mean, to really much more small time GM narrators, and they all have something to offer. You have like even now on my Twitch site, I have like so many channels that I follow, and I follow only TTRPG related channels, no video game stuff like that. I have like scroll down, I have from one to hundreds of viewers to like 5 viewers, and sometimes you find very precious jewels on some channels that only have 5 viewers or so. So yeah, it's one of the things that I'm working on, and the more I play, the more I will feel comfortable, I guess, with English and describing locations and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes with practice. And actually, RPGs are a very good way to practice and learn a language. I've seen people improve incredibly just by playing in another language. We had a question
Interesting,
about the
yes.
system because you mentioned, if I understood correctly, you mentioned that the characters can have more than one meta skill
Yeah.
and they have levels. So the question of the system is, how does the system deal with overpowered characters?
The system was built on having many overpowered characters. Well, I was playing before I started creating this game. I was playing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which we were so deep into epic levels, so deep. Like I really don't want to say the number of the level that my players had because it would be extremely controversial. But that's what we wanted to play. We visited other planets, other dimensions, but like they were world breakers, like everyone. And I started realizing that this game will not have reached its limit. This is the epic level handbook. It's not good enough. I want to create a game that, although I want it because I really love role playing more than I like number crunching, but I want to create a game that will have so much depth when it comes to power scaling that will have like you will feel that you have no ceiling. With that being said, when you create a new Metanthrope, you choose your first, as we call it, the prime meta power. The prime meta power is the one that that turned you cross the threshold from being an ordinary human to something more, to a Metanthrope. This is the meta power that you are given through your metamorphosis, the process that turns you into a Metanthrope. Once you have that, you're not limited to that. For example, at X-Men, the famous X-Men of Marvel Comics, you have like Storm. Storm is is known for controlling weather, and that's what she does. She may like reach very heights of this this superpower in her case, but you will never see her teleporting. But that would be like non-canonical. Like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to teleport like Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
But this game, Metathroops are not limited like that. You can begin by controlling weather, then you can develop teleporting, then you can develop super strength, and whatever you want. Based on the classification and the energy type that I mentioned earlier, you will have some penalties when it comes to spending your own experience. In Metanthropes, you don't have actually levels that you reach. You spend your experience. So you accumulate experience and you spend it to develop your stats or your meta powers or your some other things in game. And if you start from a psychic mind controller and you want to develop suddenly, being extremely powerful, physically powerful, it might cost a little more XP than developing, let's say, telepathy, for example, which is similar to mind control. And that's how, but you can have any meta power you want. There are no limits unless the homebrew system wants to limit you. But yeah, there are no actual limitations. That's one of the premises of being a metanthrope, a being of limitless potential in a setting of endless possibilities.
So I guess I was thinking that one thing that will limit you is the percentage, right? Because you need to have a role that is below your percentage. And I understand that the percentage is like the level of your power. So you put that experience into your percentage. So if I start with, I don't know, 10%, I won't be able to use it a lot because I have to roll below that. So I guess you don't start with like 80% or something. So that would be a kind of a limit.
Yeah, the D100 systems that I originally played is were the Warhammer series and Call of Cthulhu, and both games have in common that there are a dark world that is very stifling and very difficult to survive, and very dark things are happening to players. So that's why these systems limit the characters themselves by not having high stats. Like I remember being pretty difficult to have above 50% chance of succeeding in a role. So my best stat was usually around like 60%, and I was so I've given it all to increase that stat,
Yeah.
But during this game, Metanthropes is a game that you're supposed to feel extremely, extremely powerful. Even from the starter level, a very new character should feel extremely powerful. Without going through the full character creation process right now, it's very easy to have, when you create a new character, your main stat being above 50%. Maybe your worst stat will actually be around 10%, 10 to 20%. But it's very easy for your very first stat to be around 50%. And around your first sessions that you play, you can reach that very easily to 70%, 80%. So you have like a very big percent chance of being successful when you activate your meta powers. And actually, you can reach above 100%. It's not uncommon, actually. Like a mid-level character, like the equivalent of a mid-level character, should have their main stat at above 100, or very close 100. Now, when you have above 100, you will say, what, you are always successful? Yes, you are always successful when you activate your meta powers. But when you face another character who maybe is on equal levels, there are versus roles. So you always have like an equal chance of failing or succeeding versus someone who's as powerful as you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, actually, that's something that they mentioned on the chat, that it seems that most of the characters could be overpowered, but also the enemies. So
yeah, it's up to the narrator, the GM. We call them the narrators. It's up to the narrator to create adversaries and challenges which are based around the meta powers which the group has chosen, and it's up to them and how they like to enjoy the game around each table, as we say, to challenge the players. So if they're really bound on creating powerful characters that destroy stuff around, they can create super powerful extra dimensional enemies which are to their equal or more. So yeah, it's you're supposed to have very powerful characters, and that maybe you have very powerful characters who engage into philosophical conversations of what it means to be a metaphysical being, or encounter other spirits who are come from other dimensions where things are different. It's not about breaking stuff and destroying stuff. As I said, this game facilitates adventures, exploring, esoterical investigations, and breaking the fourth wall and stuff like that. So there are many different ways that you can enjoy this game. And there are a lot of rerolls. I want to say also that not only you have high stats, but you have a lot of rerolls. We have a mechanic that we call destiny,
Okay.
and based on your role play during each scene, you get rewarded like from 2 to 5 rerolls every scene. So like you have around 10 rerolls every session pretty easily. So yeah, it's like a lot of rerolls in this game. So you feel free, you feel very powerful, and you choose where you will invest your success and where you should store it.
All right. I hope that answered your question.
I
No, we
hope so
have
too.
another question. Um, okay, I will read the question as it is, and then we can explain if it's confusing because it is a little bit. Will there be an official or many official lines that build the meta in the Metanthropes story? So I guess
Like
like the
lines.
lore.
About the lore, yeah. There is an overarching cosmology, as I said, the mythos that I have created. But then again, it's up to each player how they want to experience it. But well, without giving too much, because I would prefer people to be introduced to that lore and that cosmos through an introductory session.
Mhm,
Well,
of course.
when you the process of becoming a metanthrope, it's different for each metanthrope. You can be it can be a selective evolution part of your DNA evolving, or you can meet a spirit, an extra-dimensional entity, and it can curse you, for example. That's how you gain your meta powers. It can be different ways. But once you become a metanthrope and you're introduced to a vast new chessboard, a vast new cosmology and world to explore and investigate, you understand the presence of other timelines. It's like that's
Okay.
why I use the word multiverse. There are many other timelines, and in the overarching lore of the game, in a game where in different timelines there can be different meta power entities like metanthropes and also spirits and some other things. Um, the at some point it is bound for some of these entities to reach a very immeasurable high level of not only meta power of omnipower, being omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, everywhere, everything all at once. And these people create a location that is outside of space and time, which is used to scout endless possibilities and endless timelines to find other metanthropes. And why? Because there is something that I use the code name right now, Omni-threat, which are multiversal type of threats, threats that exist across all the stories of metanthropes that you play. Like even if you play the mythology as gods, or you play like science fiction spaceships, there are some entities that, much like the omnipowered metanthropes travel between timelines, they do so too, and they can be a threat to the entire multiverse. And that's like the end game, and also where the lore will eventually take the players.
Okay.
I
All
hope
right.
that answers that. I'm not exactly entirely sure it answers that.
I mean, I guess so because you have some things that are part of the dynamic of the game that will change or affect in general whatever you're playing. So that's part of like a main line of story. And then whatever scenario you want to play as a narrator, it's up to you.
Mhm.
So
Exactly, yes.
yeah. Then we have an other volunteer to play and they want a physical book, please.
It's within my desires. It has been always been to have in my library of TTRPGs one super cool book. And I'm also imagine it being like when you move it like a bit like foil Magic the Gathering
Uh-huh.
cards, like how would you
Yeah.
call it? Like yeah, stuff like that with the
Yeah.
yes, this iridescent look like, which will have the player's handbook, will have all the 100 meta powers and all the rules inside, and also one for the narrators, which will have 100 antagonists, dimensions, and also techniques and world building tips and also those stuff that exists right now in digital form in my website, metanthropes.com. But yeah, before I eternalize, if I can use this term, all the content into printed form, I want beta, not only the beta phase to be concluded, but also to expand a little more and have, like, imagine my first Kickstarter being a digital, non-physical Kickstarter of the game. Will give you access to all the digital rewards and all the tools of the virtual tabletop platform and all the ways that you can play online. And once we have paid and completed this full circle of the rich and deep feedback, and I have played with hundreds and hundreds of play testers, I think that would be the nice time to create another crowdfunding campaign about a printed version of the book. And when you will read this book, you will know deep within your heart that you have the best game ever in your hands. That's my desire and vision.
Well, there you have it, guys. If you want to play it and if you want to have the physical book, you need to help get beta testers for this game. That's the next step.
Yes, we have to start from somewhere.
That's true. And you already have something. So building up. We have, it's not a question, it's just a comment that for Heather, he says that he likes you chose cosmonaut as the name of the class.
Cool. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of good feedback about this particular name, and there are some other names I'm not extremely fond of. Cosmonaut are those who travel between dimensions or teleport, open gates, or travel through light, and all the ways that you travel basically and transport are there. Yeah, it's one of the people's favorite classifications so far. But as for the names, since we are still on beta, for example, like those who have the physical stuff, which are give them formidable win 1v1 scenarios, like meta strength or meta speed. And I use the name Hammer, which is like my least favorite right now. I'm thinking of renaming it to Vanguard or Enforcer, or I don't know, something else. But there are some names that which I actually enjoy, and some others throughout the whole game that I think can be better. So that's why I'm still developing the game. And I'm open to feedback, so you can join the site and post on the forums your feedback about naming stuff. Would be much appreciated.
I actually like the hammer one. I liked it when I was scrolling on your Instagram.
Thank you.
So we have a couple of questions that I've ignored for too far along, because they are not exactly about the game, or more about you and your country. So about you as a game master, dungeon master, or narrator, as you say, what's your go-to tool to encourage players to interact more with the small clues that the side characters or the stage itself has for them? So, like, not going only for the main quest, like the side clues.
Could you specify a little bit? I'm not sure I got that exactly about side quests in game, like when I play with side quests creating
Usually
game.
players, or a lot of players, they see like side quests and they see the main quest and they ignore the clues, they ignore the small things and go for the big shiny one, like the treasure. How do you encourage players to pay attention to the small details and clues?
I will answer one way. I'm not sure it will be to the satisfaction of the one who posed the question. But to me, Metanthropes has 4 main themes. Throughout these 4 themes that I will elaborate, you can create main and side quests and personal quests and the group coalition quests, as they call it, the group of Metanthropes that are playing. So the first theme is what it means to be a Metanthrope. It's like the hero's journey of discovering yourself and through your meta powers and discovering who you are and how will you use these unique gifts you have, how you will influence the world, and what does it mean to you, how you will personally change, how your personality changes, the ways that you observe and view the world around you. The second theme are the interconnections between the Metanthropes themselves, like what is the Metanthrope society, how will they synergize their gifts together. I'm having a feeling that I'm waving off the question, but I will find a way to close it and make sense at the end. The third theme is how Metanthropes, how they influence humanity and how humanity is influenced by the presence of Metanthropes. How will the world react to their coming? Will there be scenarios like, again, the X-Men, which are obviously an influence of the game, who in the world of X-Men, they hunt down the mutants, as they call them there, because they find them a threat, and there have been all these legislations to hunt them down, and the government's using it against them, and you can use that. There will be collaboration, and the governments will work with the superheroes and the super powered entities to create a brighter future. And the fourth and final theme is the other connections of the Metanthropes and the other metapowered entities that are out there. As I've mentioned, there are spirits. There are spirits that are natives to other dimensions, which are different temporal locations or super mind-bending, total different things. Is another conversation entirely. Or extraterrestrial aliens, basically, that exist out there that might possess metapowers as well, or maybe even artificial entities which possess similar things. So melding these four themes of the game, you can, any narrator can conjure up any type of main or secondary or personal quest. I like to divide them into three categories. You have the main quest, which would be, anything that is main quest like. The secondary would be still something that the group, as a players, the coalition of Metanthropes, can investigate together, but is not the main quest line, but something secondary, maybe something secondary NPC that they're fond of, request them to help them with. But there are also personal storylines, like which are rooted into the background of each character. Or like you were turned by a freak accident, you were struck by lightning, and now you have electrokinesis, but when you did that, maybe you've hurt someone, maybe someone you loved. What does that mean to you? How can you redeem yourself from that you have done? Maybe at some point in the story, you will save someone by sacrificing yourself, something like that. That's for me. These are the personal storylines. So you can draw inspiration from the four themes and create your own main, secondary, or personal storylines, however you see fit. I usually, as a personal narrator, like my personal preferences. I always like a mix of all. From the feedback my players give me, that the secondary quests are those that intrigue them the most, because they are usually the more the player driven quests instead of narrator railroading quests, which is usually the main storyline. But also I like to give them conflict and drama with lots of personal quests, which give them second guessing everything and turning them into real three-dimensional characters instead of just like a superhero who beats up crime, because that's not the way. You can play. You can also, of course, play that. There's nothing wrong with that. Wearing capes and spandex, punching criminals on the street. But you can also experience something a little bit different, and that's, I think, what I can offer with this game.
I like that. I like it. So I guess you answered the question.
Maybe
you answered the question like about your game and how you handle it in this particular game. Would you be able to answer, like, in general, playing as a narrator yourself? What's your how you do it, your style? I think the question was about your style. I mean, it was very interesting, that answer.
All right, I will then talk a little bit about my style. As of late, I'm relating my style with the Japanese anime series.
Okay.
I will explain why. Because usually they have like flashy, cool adventure with a lot of funny characters and comic relief characters, stuff like that. But they also have very deep personal character development and drama and scenes where you're playing something very fun and flashy and cool and fun. At some point you're like, oh my God, why should it make me cry right now? That's my personal style that I like to go. But yeah, this translates to the groups that we play, like sagas, which are session after a session, like a prolonged campaign. Usually at introductory sessions, for the sake of being safe, I will use a more like convenient approach. But yeah, I would describe my style as very close to an anime. You will
Okay.
expect to see flashy, cool stuff and action and cool ideas and aesthetics and cool characters and comic relief characters, but also deep character development that maybe catches you off guard.
All right. And then, thank you. And then the other question we had pending that I ignored for a bit, it's about actually about your country. And you did answer a little bit about that. This question was sent by Maradona. She's the other one that has the channel with interviews now, but she does that in English, in Spanish, I'm sorry, for the Spanish creators. Um, Her question is, are there many role communities in your country or that you know of?
Um, I know like Esperos. I will give a shout out to Esperos community. I will give a shout out to the Facebook groups of like Dungeons and Dragons Greece, stuff like that. But I have to admit, unfortunately, I am not very active in my own community. I used to be, but especially this after I started developing Metanthropes, I haven't really reached to the local communities because I always have in mind that I'm not going to make this game locally.
Okay.
I want create a game for worldwide audiences. So it might sound like not, but I will say it nonetheless. So I'm not extremely interested into the local perception of the game.
Okay.
I'm much more interested to receiving a wide, broader feedback than, for example, if I wanted to inspire and have better means with the local community, I will create a TTRPG about ancient Greece and like Zeus and centered around stuff like that, ancient Greece like. But since this is not the game I'm creating, and I'm looking for a different audience, I haven't really taken it to feedback. Haven't really delved deep into my local communities. So I will also give shout out to the Dragon Phoenix Inn. Dragon Phoenix Inn is like a local game shop that I used to go like many years ago. And there I played the entire Transylvania Chronicles of Vampire the Masquerade, like over like 50 sessions. And there are like communities which can go centered around game shops. But unfortunately, I'm not a huge member of those communities.
All right.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing there are a lot of Greek TTRPG players who have no idea who I am and what I do. Like most of them, I would guess.
Yeah, probably. But I think it's a good idea. They are mentioning on the chat that they agree with what you're saying and your goal. The local will happen with time.
Yes.
They also want to know if you are the only master or narrator for your company at the moment.
Yes, at the moment, although have given to like 3 or 4 people the access to the content of the narrator for feedback and proofreading, and because I want to actually train them, there is a process that I'm creating called the Narrators Bootcamp, which right now it's reserved for those who join my Patreon. I have a Patreon,
Okay.
patreon.com/legitamine, a very fast plugin or advertisement. And those who reach the highest level, which is called the orchestrator, gain access to an event that I call Narrator Bootcamp, which not only they gain access to all the content I have for the narrators, which is like many, many chapters and with world building, preparation, delivery, and advanced storytelling techniques, but also we will create a process that we will, each narrator will create their own world, and we will play on each other worlds and give feedback in a tight feedback loop.
Okay.
And we will play on each other's strengths, and we will identify if you have no idea which are your strengths and which is your style. We will identify it through this process and try to develop on all your skills, which those who you think are your best skills and those you think require a little bit of work. And those who undergo this process with me will gain the badge of official narrators for the game Metanthropes, and they can also create through my website their own events and host their own events, introductory
Mm,
sessions, one-shots, or even prologue sagas. But as of this moment, in this beta phase, you can say I'm the only official one, but I am the works of pretty soon having a new wave of fresh narrators with fresh ideas and fresh styles and world building on their own to add it to the game. And hopefully to other time zones as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Actually, it's funny because right before you mentioned the boot camp, they were saying in the chat, we need to fly John to Cancun for a Metanthropes narrator training. And then they
I
changed
would
it
love
to
that.
they
If you have
changed
the
it
ticket,
to
I am
boot camp
coming.
for 2024.
That's an interesting idea. I would very much like to have a world tours of some day of going and showcasing the game. But yeah, seriously, I think I should, for marketing purposes, visit a game con at some point, maybe the
Mhm.
next year's game con. But I haven't visited any conventions ever. But it's all in good time. All in good time. I think everything will happen.
You are
So yeah, stay
still
tuned. Stay tuned. You might hear news that I am close to your neighborhood and showcase the game at some point in the future.
stay tuned to his social so he can once he posts an event you can go or just watch it from the distance if it's too far. All right, so I have a question. You mentioned that, well, no, I'm not sure you mentioned it. Is this game Mythanthropes the first game of Legitamine, or do you have any other games for the company?
Legitimate Games began actually like 10 years ago as with a video game. Theoretically, we didn't release anything. We created a lot of video game demos, were created in game jams. Then we developed them more. But then we crossed into tabletop only, like board games, like card games and strategy board games, stuff like that. But then I realized when I was creating and when I was working back in the shop that was around board games,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that the thing that I love the most, and the thing that I want to invest all of my time, energy, and passion are tabletop role playing games. These are the games that have no limit. Their only limit is your imagination. These are the games that the rules are only there to complement the collaborative storytelling of the group. And this is my one and biggest love of them all, of all the games. So, uh, although yeah, Metanthropes is the flagship right now and in the future of legitimate games, I've created lots and lots of demos, especially tabletop demos, and I have created um, other TTRPGs, which are also were using a very similar D100 system that use basically as a base for Metanthropes. But
Okay.
yeah, right now, legitimate games equals Metanthropes, and Metanthropes equals legitimate games.
And do you have any ideas for future games? I mean, I know that you are right now working on your baby and you will pay all your attention to this baby, but do you have any ideas for the future?
Quite a few. I would like to mention two. One is also a TTRPG, but it will take a very, very different approach. I was thinking about a post-death, very, very serious TTRPG,
Okay.
which is not at all revolving around action and doing cool stuff, but it will be only philosophical conversation about death and post-life, immortality, and what's the spirit. I would like a totally different experience, but I feel I'm not ready to experience and create that. But I'm having these ideas like many years now, which actually begins when someone dies. It's like your
Okay.
prelude to the game. You died. Let's start the game. Like based on Wraith the Oblivion, but Wraith also has a lot of fantastical elements. But anyway, it's some ideas that I'm working on with a much more macabre and serious and dark tone game. And something totally different would be a game that I will create some dates with. I'm not giving up on that passion dream. It's called Liesel. Liesel was the name of the daughter of Einstein. It's a little
Okay.
bit of history mysteries what happened to
Okay.
her, because it's an interesting story. You can look it up, Liesel Einstein, and the game is about black holes, and it's a science fiction game. It's a
Mm.
cooperative tabletop game about a spaceship that encounters and actually goes there to investigate the black hole. And it will be a scientific based game of decision making, heavily inspired by the movie Interstellar. For example, that particular scene on Interstellar where they want to go and they say through time dilation, if we go, we'll lose so many years back on Earth and fuel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was the exact scene that inspired me. I want to say, I want to create like a science fiction game, but it's not about pew pew aliens and rockets and lasers, but about time dilation and quantum mechanics and relativity and stuff like that. So yeah, there are many. Every designer has a lot of games in the works. But through Metanthropes, I've created like the game that I will hopefully and most probably never get bored of. Not only playing, of course, but also creating content for.
Of course, yeah.
My baby, as you called it, yeah, my baby is the exact perfect word to describe it.
Yeah, I know. We all have like that one project that is really big and you don't want to let it go ever and keep working on it.
Whatever happens, no matter the cost.
So I have a question that I'm not sure you will be able to answer precisely because it's your baby. Which is your favorite, the one that you would, if you have to select one to be real, what's your favorite meta skill or meta ability?
Actually, I do have one, and I know, like a parent, you shouldn't have like favorites between your children, but it is because it's called mirror meta power, and it is the one that copies all the others, you know. So that's why it's my favorite. It's from the arbiter class, which are those who actually break the laws of the game, and one who actually is like a mirror. So if I'm standing someone to controls the weather next to me and I roll the dice, I'm successful. Now I can briefly, for a short period of time, control weather myself. If I am next to no Metanthropes at all, I will not have any meta powers. And if I'm standing in the convention of Metanthropes, I will have so many to choose from. So that's why it's my favorite, because it's basically all others.
Wow. And you don't have to use your experience divided into a lot of abilities. You put all your experience in one.
Yes, that's a nice build to power game this particular meta power. Yes,
All
just
right.
run and high stats. Yes.
So, how you mentioned you have the website, you mentioned your Instagram, you mentioned your Discord. Which one of those would be the best or the go-to to support you guys?
I also have a link tree. I will post here on our Zoom chat, and you can forward it. I'm quite active on the social media. I've always kind of have been, and especially on I will find it multitasking right now.
Don't worry, just send it. We can wait.
And especially, yeah. Well, I feel that I want each social media to serve a different purpose. So, for example, I started with Facebook group, which I'm the least active right now, which I'll use now only for big announcements and finding other big groups like Facebook groups with other playtesters. I am very active many times per week actually on Twitter, and which I get involved into the community stuff of the TTRPG community, which are like which I found discovered like a couple of years ago, and I find very solidarity based, very community based, like Follow Friday, which every Friday you post other people of the community that you should follow, and they do the same to you, and it's like very back and forth the community, very supportive. I really like all those things. So I'm active, very much active on Twitter. Discord, as we said, is very important, not only for community building, but also for all the sessions I run through Discord, voice and video. My Instagram is quite new. I only have like 3 months or so, and I only want to post pictures there and some announcements through our stories. But yeah, I want to post all the 100 meta powers there, at least the open beta icons. If you don't really like them, it's okay. I'm not a professional designer, but they will give you an idea of the content of the game. That's their purpose. And we don't have much original artwork just yet, but it's one of the upcoming things in the short-term future. What else? I have a brand new YouTube channel It's only has like a couple of videos. The rest are behind the Patreon wall, which I want to use to have how to play tutorials,
Okay.
lore videos, and highlights from live streams and actual plays. And last but not least, which I have no content at all right now and have never actually used it besides one time, it's my Twitch channel, which I imagine at some point on Twitch, I will be playing live and having like amazing sagas and ongoing storylines with different parties, and maybe one day having multiversal sagas with different parties, different coalitions, which operate and exist on the same overarching greater cosmology and world, and their actions, the actions of one group will influence the world of another, and all that could be something viewers can not only observe but also participate by influencing the decisions of the group and stuff. I have many ideas, but I'm extremely new on how to set up my own Twitch, and it's not exactly social media, more like a crowdfunding platform, but I also have a new Patreon page, Patreon, which there you can not only gain instant access to all the work in progress part of the game, but also content of the game, but also many exclusive perks and bloopers of the videos that I create. And you can vote for stuff and gain access to very cool stuff like live streams and like the narrator bootcamp that I mentioned earlier. So, and eventually I want to create a TikTok. I feel I'm a bit old to understand how exactly it works, but I will get there at some point.
Well, once you have players that are official playing, and once you have videos of streams of games, you can make the short videos from those, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's for like shorter videos and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably only highlights and quick announcements.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Maybe short explanations.
yeah, when learning and developing a new social media, it's time consuming, and I'm doing all those things myself. So I'm not extremely eager to get into TikTok just yet, but I know that it's the place where all the youngsters are right now. So eventually, if I want to reach a younger audience, I will have to go and become active on TikTok as well. So it's
Yeah, that's
unavoidable.
true. That's true. So I have two questions. Let me see. Okay, I'll start with the one that I think it's easier. You mentioned that this is not the final artwork and that you have plans to have other things created later on. But do you already have an idea? Like, I want this artist, or do you have something in mind already?
I have aesthetics in mind and the approach that I want to go when it comes to original artworks, not just design. Design, it's easier, and I'm kind of developing, as you see, like with the icon stuff, I have a little bit of skills in the design. But when it comes to original artworks, I have a very good idea about aesthetics and what I want those original artworks I have in mind to be.
Okay.
But haven't really researched artists themselves. One of my very close friends and part of the greater Legitamine team, shout out to Neil, who created the logo for both Metanthropes and Legitamine. He knows a lot about. I will counsel him about artists to collaborate when the time. And he also has created all the original art that we have right now, which was like super basic, the one that you see on the welcome page, super basic concept art for the game. Hopefully he will create more when the time comes. But that's for when it comes to aesthetics. The few principles that I want to be like my pillars is that this is not a superhero RPG in the traditional term. I don't want, you can play it if you want like that, when you can 100% create anything you want, and there's no right and wrong, of course, way to play. But when it comes to the aesthetics of the game, that when you see the pictures, there will be no capes, no spandex, no masks, and superheroes. I want when someone sees a Metanthrope to be an everyday, ordinary person, maybe like a teenager or a grandma lifting a car instead of the traditional muscle guy,
Yeah.
you know. So it's like something you're not expecting, because meta powers could could be part of someone you're not traditionally expect to be the one who has them. So that plays a little part of the game. I want to be right now for these few images that I have, and maybe for the future artworks I have in mind. I want the Metanthropes to be to not having a definitive gender. I want to be um, um, like, for example, if you see the welcome page, the very first image is like you're in it's a distinguishable gender. You're not exactly sure. This is one of the aesthetics that I have in mind for this game, to be gender fluid, the characters and on the most of the images. Or to be like through behind like shadows, like to see them on their backs, and you see, like, understand that it's a person in the middle of a nova and on a city, but I'm not sure if that person is a woman, or a guy, or otherwise, or what age, of what nationality, all these things, because a Metathrop can be anyone. I don't want to portray them like something that has been like one of the issues of the genre, not the TTRPG, but the superhero genre, to be always like muscly white guys or something like that.
Yeah,
I want
usually.
to avoid this stereotype as much as possible when it comes
Okay.
to artworks. As for art style and stuff like that, I'm feeling unqualified right now to describe it. So I will leave it for later to go to delve deep into that.
All right. I mean, I think you already have a very specific in defined idea, and that will be very helpful in the future for when you start working on that. Then I had a question that originally when I thought about it, I felt it was like a silly question, but then I saw on the chat that I wasn't the only one that had the idea. Now, let me explain a little bit of why I'm asking this. Here in Mexico, for example, or in Latin America, when we play, it doesn't matter what game we're playing. We usually go for a more maybe aggressive or, yeah, actively aggressive style because that's our context. And it's hard to get rid of your context and what surrounds you. And you will eventually have that in your game, right? Now, I'm not saying that everyone here is like that or that's the only way. It's something that usually happens. And speaking with people from other countries, here in the interviews in particular, I've noticed how different it is the style to play and developing the games. Now, they were making the jokes that, oh, he's from Greece. Oh, he must be a philosopher. And actually, well, a little bit, yes, you have that influence because, well, all your games have that, right? Like thinking about why things are like that. You push people to try to understand what is to have these abilities or what is to be that, for example. Now, what would you say is your inspiration? You mentioned some comics and some movies, but like for the motivation of doing these games more serious and to think about things more than pew pew.
That's an excellent and very deep question. I really like it. A few seconds ago, I saw the chat and I saw the name Alan Moore, and let's start from that.
Okay.
First of all, I will say that, yeah, as you said, nobody can really be uninfluenced, if that's a word. I'm not a native speaker,
No
but
worries.
not being influenced by the world around you, especially your local area. Although I will say, I will follow that by saying that I always felt like an alien all my life and a misfit. So I'm not really influenced by what other Greeks do and other people who live on Athens do and stuff like that. But yeah, everybody has their influences. So um, when I was reading like comics from a young age, and then I was, by the time I finished school, I was introduced to the whole term of a graphic novel. And I'm saying, like, it's a comic. I was like in a comic shop, and it's like, no, a graphic novel is not a comic. It's something like deeper. So it has illustrated pages, yes, but it has deeper and more serious meaning and in-depth character stuff like that. And I was introduced to Alan Moore through Watchmen. What Watchmen did to the comic book superhero genre, I want Metanthropes to do to the superhero TTRPG genre.
Okay.
That's like my golden vision, because it kind of deconstructed the genre itself, the mythos, because it didn't follow the traditional tropes and steps. It created its own, and the characters were not usually, like, it's very frequent to see comic book characters on the traditional, like, golden era stuff like that in the previous era, were like one or maybe two or maybe one dimensional characters. And then came Alan Moore, who gave depth into the creating truly three-dimensional characters who are not black and white, who are not like good and evil, but you can relate to them. Like, for example, one of my Watchmen has so many of my favorite characters, like Rorschach, or the comedian. Comedian, for example, is a controversial character who, of course, is a horrible, horrible person, but also is such an interesting character, and you can kind of, based on the how he was raised and what the circumstances was around him, to not only rationalize but to sympathize, even that he's a horrible person with everything he has done. But also meta characters like Dr. Manhattan, who's also obviously a huge influence to the game, who was actually ways beyond. Yeah, but when it comes to influences, I would say definitely the work of Alan Moore has been a major influence. And what he, besides the actual books that he has created and graphic novels, many of his interviews, I am really how can I say, ecstatic about this person, about the talking about the landscapes of imagination, which is very close to TTRPGs actually. How he believes that anything that we imagine actually occupies a space in the landscapes of imagination. Like actually, I use that on Metanthropes and I call it astral dimension. All the subconscious thoughts go to an actual dimension. But yeah, I think I'm getting off track a bit. The question was about my
Yeah.
influences.
Don't worry.
All right. What other influences I can say I have? I think, like mentioned off the top of my head, I haven't really thought about it in quite some while about my influences. But another, like, movie that I really liked, and I think that's very close to what I feel Metanthrope is like, is the movie Chronicle. Uh, it plays by it's currently it's like a few years back. Michael B. Jordan played, but he wasn't famous back then. Now he's a big name. And you can look it up. Chronicle is a movie which, like, those one of these movies that's entirely through the first person view of a camera,
Yeah.
like Blair Witch Project and other movies like that, which are not, they don't have much fans. It's about a group of kids who find, spoilers, I guess, uh, who discover something and then gain telekinetic powers. And it actually portrays those, at least the first two themes of Metanthropes. How will your life change once you discover your meta powers, and what will you do with them? And in most cases, I think that it will apply in real life into this fantasy scenario that one of us gets meta powers. Most probably, they will not go directly to stop crime and save the world. Maybe they will help their relatives. Maybe they will use their mind reading powers to get a better job, maybe very basic stuff. And I think this is part of the game. Like, not only I wouldn't mind, I would very much enjoy a saga of Metanthropes that you play and do very mundane and everyday things instead of world breaking or world building things. Um, Also, the aesthetics of the movie hero, of the series Heroes, was like 10 years ago, a series about which I was like superhero kinda, but not wearing again capes, was like more grounded. Well, at least I have only seen the first season. After that, it goes bad, I've heard. But the first season, it's very close to what I originally had in mind for Metanthropes, for like the first act of a story of Metanthropes, at least the first 10 to 5 sessions, 5 10. And yeah, off the top of my head, as for influences, I will say those few things. But next time I will be more prepared for that question.
No, don't worry. I think that's a lot of things that you mentioned. Me personally, I don't know three of the ones you mentioned, so I have to look for them. And I think it explains how and why you go to that. They are mentioning on the chat that in most cases, probably chaos will be the result of people getting superpowers or meta abilities, especially if you don't have like a guidance to take actions. Like you mentioned, whether you will be doing like regular things and just having some advantage, or the other hand, that you will be, like they are mentioning on the chat, become a super villain more than likely. So yeah,
Become
I
a super
think
villain takes a lot of work. It's not easy thing to do. Becoming a villain is easy. Becoming a super villain is pretty difficult. And yeah, I remember right now, it was like a while back, you asked about my style. I've received feedback that my players, that their favorite characters are those who are traditionally called villains. I
Mhm.
never call them villains because they're antagonists maybe because they antagonize the group, but I never create like one or two dimensional bad guys with the traditional term. But these are the ones that my players enjoy the most because I really make them think and I make them sympathize with this character and I give them a good reason why they do evil things,
Yeah,
I'll call them. And yeah, those who are actually super villains, who are actually want to take over the world, they must have like a very deep agenda and very, very, very resourceful in order to survive to do it,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's true. That's true. We don't think a lot about that, but yeah, having the superpower is not enough. All right. Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, no, I gave you the last question. So we are reaching the end of the interview. I am very thankful that you accepted. It has been very interesting. I have to confess that the first time I read the first part of your on your website, I imagined it would be mainly about like the superpower and the superhero that you mentioned. But looking at your posts on Instagram and listening to you, I realized that, well, it can be like that, like you mentioned. It's your style if you want. But yeah, no, that's not the idea that I'm getting from what you posted so far. And now that I talk to you, I am certain that's not the point. More like the understanding the process of what happens when you get certain abilities. And I really like it. I'm very excited to play if I have the chance. And I saw in the
I would
chat
love
at
to
least
introduce you
3.
to you. Yeah. Excellent. We have a full group now.
Yeah,
Lovely.
yay!
How was it for you, your first English interview, by the way?
Oh, it's good. Actually,
I had a blast. I had so much fun. It was great for me. How was it for you?
I really like it. I enjoy a lot speaking with other people from other places because, as I mentioned before, we all have different contexts. And even though, I don't know, we have the internet and we can watch the same movies, the way you will take, or yeah, the information that you will take from there might not be the same for you and for me because we have different contexts. And even though right now we're speaking English, the way you understand English passes through your own language, and also for me. So it's different for everyone, and it's always very interesting to talk to people
Wow,
and
yeah.
understand their way of seeing things, only with the language difference.
But the love for TTRPGs binds us.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Yeah,
have that
that's
in
the
common.
idea.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's the idea. So if you have more questions, guys, I can keep asking questions. I see that they don't want us to leave. But if not, I see here, okay, yeah, we do have one more question. Is someone else helping you with your Instagram? They are asking this because the posts for the classes are in alphabetical order and they think that needs to have a very good organization. Or do you do that yourself?
I do that myself. I started actually, I've started to, I'm posting them by classification actually, by classification first and by alphabetical order secondary. And I started with the last meta power, which is shapeshift from the last classification, and I go all the way up to the classification that starts with an A, like Aegis. So yeah, once this project, which will be complete in like about a month or so, have all my posts planned. Um, when you scroll down the page, you will see all the 100 meta power with the different icons, and you understand maybe just by scrolling what the different classifications are and what the colors may represent. but also have like links to note a short description to each. And as I said, yeah, this is something that during the first Kickstarter will be one of the first things that will be upgraded. I will hire a professional designer, and I will say, I will give those 100 icons I create myself and say, look at those, now make them much better.
The idea, improve it. All right. Well, I think that's a good idea. Again, I like what you have. It is simple and like very specific, very direct of the idea. But of course, we always want to improve and make things better for our brains. All right. So before we jump to the last part of the show, I would like to give you some time if you want to like talk directly to the viewers and whoever will see this on YouTube later. Any announcements or anything that you would like to say? Now is your time.
First of all, thank you for having me. It has been amazing. You can find me and find Metanthropes starting from metanthropes.com. This is where all the fun begins. And all my socials are /Legitamine or LegitamineGames. I've posted the link tree. You can pass it on to the chat if you want to. And I'm active on Twitter, Instagram, and a little bit Facebook. Now I'm getting I'm getting a new wave of videos prepared and cooking for YouTube. I will post the highlights of the live streams there as well. You will learn, you can learn how to play on with tutorial videos and stuff I mentioned earlier, so I don't have to repeat myself. And yeah, coming with live streams on Twitch, short videos on TikTok, and whatever else comes our way. So yeah, now it's time for you to become a Metanthrope and stay legit, stay meta.
That's great. They are saying thank you so much for your work. Thank you, John. Thank you, Legitimine. Sorry, I knew this would happen. Thank you for
It's
your
like
effort. And then before
thank you for the questions, chat. Thank you for the questions. Great questions.
Then before I jump to the final announcements for next week, we here on the channel have a symbolic way to say thank you to the guests that accept the interview and share their hour and a half of their time to this. They should be able to see it right about now in the screen. If you have Twitch open, you will be able to see it. This is an acknowledgement that we create for our guests. Again, it's a symbolic way to say thank you. And also for you to have like, hey, I was in your interview, you can watch it, you can get to know me. So again, thank you so much for accepting, for being here, for sharing all those details.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was I had a good time. I had a really good time, and thank you for giving me the chance to talk about my game.
Well, you now have 5 people that will be signing up, so I hope you are ready. And before I close this up, I'll switch to Spanish very quickly. A ver si no se me olvidan los anuncios. Tenemos este jueves una mesa que voy a estar narrando yo. Es un one shot. Tenemos también viernes de Eternity a las 9 como todas las semanas. Tenemos sábado entrevista. Y el domingo también tenemos una mesa. No va a haber Shining Across Iron, pero tenemos una mesa muy especial también. Fuera de eso, estén atentos a nuestras redes. Muchas gracias por haber venido. Gracias por quedarse hasta ahora y todas sus preguntas. Ya saben dónde tienen que meterse para poder hacer testing de este juego. All right, so that's it for the week. And again, thank you so much. I hope you have a good day. I think it's actually good night for you.
Yeah, I hope you have a good Sunday, noon and afternoon for you.
Thank you so much. See you guys, and may your checks be always critical.